I wrote back. I'm not sure that I was civil.
Good.
I just, great.
It was easy. It was right there.
You got the
No,
waffle.
no, it's all about that.
It's always something. Packet for my trip to
All right.
pull in my purse.
As soon as I get my chair adjusted, we'll start.
Okay. Travel.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock. We'll begin our meeting with, for our April the 17th, 2023 meeting. To those in the audience and those at home watching, thank you for being here and participating. We'd like to begin our meeting by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the territory of the Ottawa and Chippewa peoples who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. We thank you for your strength and resilience in protecting this land and inspiring us to uphold our responsibility to do the same. As we go through our meeting tonight and our discussions with each other, may we do so with respect, dignity, patience, and charity for each other. With that, Ms. Stanley, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. With that, roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Shamrow?
Here.
Commissioner Colbert?
Here.
Commissioner Treadwell?
Here.
Commissioner Wilson?
Here.
Commissioner Werner?
Here.
Commissioner Stanley?
Here.
Mayor Lewis?
Here. Okay, with that, announcements from the interim city manager.
I have none today.
Okay, thank you. From the announcements from the deputy city clerk.
Meetings scheduled for this week are the Planning Commission will meet this Tuesday, April 18th at 7 p.m. in the Commission chambers. The Arts Commission will meet this Wednesday, April 19th at 3:30 p.m. in the committee room. The Grand Traverse Common Joint Planning Commission will meet this Wednesday, April 19th at 5:15 at Garfield Township Hall at 3848 Veterans Drive. The Downtown Development Authority meeting will be held this Friday, April 21st at 9 a.m. in the Commission chambers. And some community updates. The neighborhood listening sessions for the master plan rewrite will take place on April 19th and 20th with virtual components on April 22nd. Those unable to attend may participate in an online survey that will be published after the sessions. For more information on these times and locations, visit tcmasterplan.org.
Okay. Seeing how you're on a roll, would you like to go ahead and do the consent calendar, ma'am?
Sounds great. The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for individual consideration by the commission. And such requests will be automatically respected. If an item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted in parentheses on the agenda is approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. 1, consideration of approving the minutes of April 3rd, 2023 and April 17th. That's a typo. Minutes of the
April
City
10th.
Commission.
April 10th.
That would have been last week.
April 10th.
April 10th. 2, consideration of adopting a resolution authorizing the joint off-premise tasting room license for Sleeping Bear Apiaries Limited, which would authorize tastings and sales of products from St. Ambrose, and consideration of authorizing the city clerk to issue the related registration allowing the operation of the license at 215 East Front Street. Adoption and approval recommended. Consideration of adopting a resolution approving a request from JEH Travers 1 LLC, DBA Pacific Coast, which would recommend approval of a request for a new redevelopment liquor license with Class C privileges, Sunday sales AM/PM permits at 123 West Front Street, and consideration of authorizing the city clerk to issue the related registration, which allows the license to be operated. Adoption and approval recommended. 4, consideration of approving fireworks display permit for the Boom Boom Club for July 4th, 2023. Approval recommended. 5, consideration of authorizing the fireworks display permit for the National Cherry Festival for July 8th, 2023. Approval recommended. Consideration of declaring a 2012 Ford F-350 cab and chassis surplus, and consideration of authorizing a purchase order for its replacement, which is a 2023 Ford F-350 SRW cab and chassis utility truck for use by the Water and Sewer Maintenance Division, which is a scheduled purchase. Approval recommended. Consideration of authorizing a 2-year lease with Morsels Coffee LLC for its use of city property adjacent to its business for outdoor dining purposes. Approval recommended. Consideration of approving an amendment to the lease agreement with Zest for its use of city property adjacent to its business for outdoor dining purposes to extend the lease by 1 year. Approval recommended. Consideration of waiving the competitive bidding process and authorizing a 5-year purchase order for online ordinance codification solution. Approval recommended. 10, consideration of adopting a corrected motion to correct the dollar amount authorized for the agreement for consulting services to assist the city with management, administration, coordination, and operation of the food composting pilot project funded by the United States Department of Agriculture, and rescinding the related motion adopted April 3rd, 2023, which is a housekeeping matter. 11, consideration of approving the acceptance of an easement in connection with the 100 block East Front Street Sewer Main Project and authorizing an agreement for sewer lead construction. Approval recommended.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone from the commission who would like to have an item removed from the consent calendar? Okay. I'll open this for anyone from the public. Okay, not seeing one, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion that we accept the consent calendar as presented.
Okay.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion and support. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, thank you. Next is old business. We have consideration authorizing a change order for the West End Volleyball Beach Courts expansion project, which is to include fencing along the north side of the courts. Okay, who do I want, Penny?
Sure. This is a request for a change order for Elmer's Crane and Dozer. It was included in the original plan, but it was inadvertently admitted when the construction contract went out for RFP, so this is to correct that.
Well, the issue is that if this had been in the original plan and because we only committed $60,000, then that means none of the project would have happened at that point in time.
Nope.
So, okay, just want to make sure that was cleared. Okay. Anybody have any other questions from up here?
I won't be supporting this. I wasn't a part of this body, but I'm not happy that this got approved in the first place. So just as a symbol of my discontent about this having happened, I will be voting no.
Okay.
I also hope that someone has noticed that a 65-year-old tree was taken down for this project, and I hope that tree replacement is part of the contract somewhere along the line.
Okay. But this is, anyway, through this, that we agreed that we would go with the improvements. And we agreed at that time that it could not exceed, you know, if it exceeds $60,000, someone would have to come up with the money somewhere else. If this was omitted but would have been in there, then we wouldn't have moved forward with the project that did take place. And so if the volleyballers want fencing there, they need to raise the money for it. That's my opinion, so.
Well, and just to piggyback on that, that was, when it was brought forward to us last time, it was because it had been passed as part of the budget at that $60,000 rate, not for $77,000 or $78,000. And so I concur with what's been said of, I was happy, you know, the arguments were made year after year after year, and the recommendation kept coming from the Parks and Rec board, but we had a limit on it, and we've reached that limit, in my opinion.
Yeah. For this year. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with the discussion and where it seems to likely be headed. Just, did anybody reach out to staff and have this very discussion before tonight?
We saw it the first time on Wednesday.
Okay, just wondering. Thanks.
Okay. When we were going through our agenda review, so. Okay. Yes, sir.
I am glad that there is fencing on the south side to prevent, say, wayward balls from rolling towards Grandview Parkway, but I would say on the north side that is much less of a safety risk if a ball goes into the bay.
Okay. With all due respect, I don't see a consensus to move forward with this. I think we'll just kind of leave it there and not have to do anything further unless someone really wants to make a motion. Okay, I don't see that. Okay, we're just going to pass by this one, if that's the consensus at this point. Okay, thank you. Next, we have consideration of adopting a resolution authorizing issuance. This is a long one. Consideration of adopting a resolution authorizing issuance of a note, which was approved, I think, last year. We also have the authorizing an intergovernmental agreement between Traverse City Light and Power and the city as it relates to covering debt service. And finally, we have a notice of intent of resolution to issue bonds for the utility smart grid network and fiber system for an amount not to exceed $10 million. I think those are the three main items that we have to consider tonight. And Ms. Hill, who do we
Yes,
turn this over to?
you summarized that very well, Honorable Mayor. We do have Brandy Ekren and Carla Myers-Beeman from Traverse City Light and Power here to answer any questions that you might have. We also have representatives from Miller Canfield, who's the bond counsel, and we have Warren Kramer, who is the financial advisor for the project. So it's kind of self-explanatory, 3 items, and if you have questions, we're willing to entertain those.
So who's going to do the broad overview? No, you're need Randy or Cor. You'll get your chance.
So we started this process in April 2021 by applying for funds to the USDA. In April 2022, we received approval through a commitment letter. We knew at that point we had inflationary costs for the project of $2.8 million. It's taken another year to get through the contract execution relating to the USDA changing their program from FFB to a treasury program. In addition, we were in a kind of interest rate environment that was different than in past years. So we took a little additional time to kind of talk about our financing strategy going forward. During that time, we had additional inflationary costs of $2.9 million. So that's really the additional request. We've built in a 25% contingency of about $4.3 million. We anticipate not needing that additional funds, but wanted to build that in so we don't have to come back for additional requests. But if there are additional inflationary costs or unexpected costs, we would issue bonds for that amount. We expect our contract to be executed in June. And so we'll have the amount known when we come back in June if this is approved for the notice of issuance for those bonds. And so I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have beyond that.
Just because I think many of us were up here when this originally came to us, but I lose track of the timeline. But because it does come up and there is always some confusion, would you mind really quickly going over why this has to come to us for approval, but the finances are being secured by Light and Power, and that body will be responsible?
Yeah, so the city charter requires that the debt be issued by the city, be approved by the city commission. And with this type of financing, it has to be a general obligation bond backed by the full faith and credit of the city. And that's the reason for the intergovernmental agreement. That agreement will hold harmless the city. So all financial responsibility will be held by the electric fund.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions that you'd like to be asked? This is part of a long-range program that I know that the city, along with Light and Power, has desired, at least for the fiber portion of it. So this is just continuation of that project. So, okay.
Since this has been one of my projects I've been working on, I will not ask one of my fellow commissioners to read this entire motion, so I will make the motion that the resolution authorizing issuance of note, which authorizes the execution of the documents related to the United States Department of Agriculture Rural Utilities Service Loan in the amount of $14,699,000, which would finance the smart grid improvements, be adopted contingent upon Traverse City Light and Power executing an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Traverse City to provide that the Traverse City Light and Power will pay the debt service on the loan from user charges of the fiber fund and/or electric fund, and that the mayor and city clerk should be authorized to execute such agreement with the agreement subject to its approval by substance by the interim city manager and it's formed by the city attorney, and further that the supplemental notice of intent resolution capital improvement bonds and notes for electric utility smart grid network and fiber system improvements be adopted.
Support.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, I'll open this up for any public comment, please.
We
Yes,
ask-
ma'am.
We ask that you state your name and address, indicate if you are a city resident, non-city resident, and/or city business owner. We have a 3-minute time allotment per speaker. When your time has elapsed, the timer will beep. And finally, we request that all language be respectful to all parties.
Under the circumstances, I'm going to ask that the 3-minute thing be waived, and I'll try not to go too much beyond 5. Because this is a very important thing, and I think the city needs to know everything that's really going on here. Don't you think so?
I'll go to my colleagues. Is there anyone else that's going to speak toward this issue? Mr. Tweetmeyer will. Okay. Yes?
Oh, I was just saying we can give her 5.
Okay.
Okay, I appreciate that, and thank you very much.
You're
But I'll try to
welcome.
keep it as close to 3 as I can. And it doesn't start yet. It starts now. Okay, so...
Oh, no, I started you a minute ago. Don't worry.
Okay, my name is Barb Willing, and I did sue this commission on this very issue, and not to stop it, but over the financing of it, because it's been so shady. And it has just gotten shadier, everybody. So you were supposed to get the ag funds back in last August. You did not get them because you didn't sign the paperwork. Is that what I'm seeing here? Is that what I'm seeing? Because, okay, so now the bond contains that $14 million that the ag money has. So we can get both now, right? We can get the ag money for the low interest $14 million, and then the bond also has the $14 million that you approved last year. So now that's $28 million. Well, 28's in here. Okay, that's good. But now we're going after another $10 million that I said you guys were going to need, and that's still not the end of the bucket. The $3 million for the drop lines cannot be bonded. You've already been told that. You've got a Millican field attorney here in the audience. Mr. Attorney, have you seen our city charter? If I were to tell you that the city
Barb,
charter
you need to
says,
speak to us. Okay.
I need you to ask the attorney to see the city charter and to see what it says about notes. And notes cannot be any longer than 3 years. These are not my words. These are not anything I did. These are your documents that you are bound by your oath of office to follow. So a note can't be any more than 3 years. Yet your note from last year is 35 years. How can that be? It's wrong. It's illegal. So are we laundering money here? Is that what we're doing? I'm not sure. If we're going to do this right, put it to a vote of the people. And that way, we'll give you all the money you want. We won't lose our city charter. We'll bifurcate the electric company from the fiber optics, and then we won't have to rely on the electric company to go down when the fiber optics does. That's all I'm saying. It seems reasonable. Mark my words. My words have already come true. I just, shame on us for allowing this to happen. That's all. I'm done. Am I under my 3 minutes? Oh, wow.
Good job.
Okay. I guess I got it all. The other thing is, too, you need to know how much Mitsubishi has been paid, because right off the top, they were paid $8 million, or $800,000 rather, right off the top as soon as the first monies came in. And I can't see what they did for $800,000, but maybe you can. And the other thing is the bond issuance costs. I tried to look for it in the documents that we had here, but I couldn't find it. So you need to know those too. These are all just fiscally responsible for a government office. That's all I'm saying. Thank you. Anyone got any questions? Because I'm loaded. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Oh, by the
Williams.
way, the reason the lawsuit got dismissed was because the attorneys represented to the court that I didn't live in Traverse City. In my mind's eye, that was a little bit naughty. Okay, I'm just saying. It's going to come back and haunt them. You know it is. Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening. For the record, Bill Tweetmeyer, 300 East Bay Boulevard North, Traverse City. I'm a city resident. I've been following this matter from afar over the past few years. I've noticed a lack of detailed questions that the Light and Power Board and City Commission have asked. So I designed a few questions that I hope you will ask before voting on the resolution. Last April, the City Commission approved $14.7 million in the USDA loan for the smart grid, and the interest rate at that time was 2 1/8%. I think that was what was quoted. At present, I think the interest rate is now 3 3/4%, but I would like this board to ask just to confirm that so that it's out in the public. Secondly, the bond details for the issuance and sale of the general obligation capital improvement bonds of $10 million state that the bonds will mature in not to exceed 35 years. What is the useful life of the smart grid and the high-speed internet system, and will the bonds match the useful life of that system? The third question is, the bond details also mention that interest rates will be determined at a public or negotiated sale. And I guess the question that I would like you to ask is, which will it be, a negotiated sale or a competitively bid sale? And if not a competitively bid, why not? The fourth question is the Fujitsu cost-benefit analysis from May 7th, 2019, upon which Light and Power based its entry into this endeavor, assumed an optimistic take rate of 60%, a most likely take rate of 50%, a break-even take rate of 40%. With phase one, which was the pilot program and also the addition of phase 1.1, Light and Power has not achieved the 40% take rate. I believe their take rate is about 22 to 24%. To me, that's a concern, and I'm wondering if you can ask the question, has anyone asked the consultant, why are we not at the most likely level of 50% in their study, or if they've considered reevaluating their study? My fifth question is, if this, what happens if this venture is a financial failure? What will be the resultant increase in electric rates to the city's electric ratepayers in order to service not only the principal and interest on the debt, but any shortfall in the operating costs? As city commissioners, you need to know that the risk that you are taking, and the city residents need to know that too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, some questions asked. Are there availability of any answers to those questions?
I will definitely leave it up to Light and Power staff to answer, but some of them I actually had notes to answer as well. Light and Power is far more sparsely attended, and some probably maybe our ratings, if you will, are not as high as city commission meetings. But in answer to some of the questions, and certainly I know Carla especially has many more numbers, but to get some things started, the ag money that we did vote on this, but we didn't get it and then ask for more. We've literally been waiting this long for the USDA to give us our finances. So if anybody wants to make jokes about working with the federal government and it taking a long time, now is the time to insert those jokes. It did cost us our percentage rate. I haven't asked, but I'm pretty sure we can't sue the federal government for a percentage rate on our bond as much as we might want to because of what the position this has put us in. And the take rate discussion has been discussed, and one of the discussion, and some of that has been, as Mr. Tweetmeyer said, in 2019, our take rate projection was the 50% rate approximately. We also built downtown first for that reason. What happened in 2020? And we haven't seen the numbers in downtown for businesses that would use our fiber come back up to the numbers for that take rate. What the USDA loan is going to allow us to do is go out into the neighborhoods where we have wait lists of people waiting to sign up for their homes. So I don't have, I leave again the numbers to Carla, but a lot of these questions are very good ones that I think Mr. Warner and I have had discussions of at Light and Power board meetings with other people, with our fellow, I guess we're called directors there, I always forget. So some of these questions have been discussed in other places, but not up here, so those were very good questions to ask to get that conversation going. And then I'm trying to read my own notes, and I can't right now. So those are the highlights of the things that I was going to say. I know Carla can give us many more numbers. And this is being backed in the full faith and credit of the Light and Power as its own entity, but as a part of the city, we do have to approve it up here. So I'll hand the mic over, as it were.
So just kind of answer the questions. The The USDA interest rate that is forecasted as at 3.77%, so very close to what Bill Tweetmeyer said, 3.75%. And our strategy is to purchase the materials and equipment up front, so we can kind of lock in that rate, because that interest rate fluctuates based on the draw. As to the length of the loan, the USDA will only loan the money based on the useful life of the asset. So the equipment will be 10 years, but the actual infrastructure, they approved up to 35 years. So kind of the backbone. The bond details, that hasn't been ironed out yet. I think most likely will be competitive, but we kept that open just because we are kind of an uncharted interest rate environment. I mean, we recently just saw a couple of bank failures, so kind of depending on the environment that we are in will depend on if we go to a negotiated or competitive sale, but I would say most likely a competitive sale. The Fujitsu take rate, yes, we have not met the 40%, but we also haven't done a full-fledged marketing campaign that you would see in a typical telecommunication industry, just because we are only partially in the town, so it's hard to do that. If we do a full marketing campaign, we get a lot of customers say, oh, we're not there yet, and they get upset. So that's kind of one of the missing items as to why we haven't achieved that full take rate. The financial failure, just to let you know, we did phase 1 and phase 1.1 so we could learn and educate and how things go. So we did the financial forecast based on phase 1.1 for phase 2 because of the demographics being relatively the same of primarily residential. So those forecasts were applied to phase 2 and even kind of conservatively. So with phase 1, we achieved 69% of the take rate after 1 year of construction. So I have that same assumptions for phase 2, that we received 69% of the take rate after 1 year after construction is complete. But if there is a financial failure, there's a potential of a rate increase of about 4.5% to cover the principal and interest expense. And I think that's all the questions. If you have any further.
Carla, if I remember or explaining that, last year when we did the USDA, we applied for or had permission to go for 18 million, correct?
Yeah, so we had 14.699 with USDA, and then we had another 3.5 in general obligation bonds for drop costs, because
Okay.
drop costs aren't covered.
Well, I mean, we didn't get the full 18,000 because they would not fund the drop costs. That's why we have to go and get extra money.
Correct.
So, okay. Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
I have a question. So again, I was not in on the original discussions here, so I am not especially knowledgeable. But is there a chance that the failure of this fiber then somehow puts our municipal utility in jeopardy?
But that's what Carla just was answering. Carla, if you, it's a 4.5% increase in.
So the electric fund is pledging its full faith, or pledging its revenue. So if by chance this project became a failure, which we do not believe 100%, it would have to be covered by the electric fund revenues, the principal and interest.
Okay, not passed on to the consumer?
It would,
To the
yeah,
user?
it would be passed on to the consumer through most likely a rate increase or, reduction of expenses.
I think you state that you would be an average of 4.5% of a rate increase of the electricity if that had to happen,
Yes.
if I heard you correctly.
Mayor, Mr. Werner?
Just a quick comment.
Yes.
And maybe my colleague over here, but also for the public, we refer to this as, the fiber build-out and fiber fund, if we can say it. But it's also a smart grid. So even if we weren't interested in being on the internet and that sort of thing, for everything that the Climate Action Plan that Light and Power is currently working on, all those pieces in the future that will provide us with where we think we're going and the state is going and the country is going, we will need a smart grid. So this
It's more than-
installation is needed for that smart grid every bit as much, if not more, than it's needed so that I can play games on my computer.
That's really important to know.
And Tim, thank you for that, because one of the things I couldn't read, and then I rewrote it very clearly on here with lines underlined, is one of the reasons when we originally started this conversation 7 years ago now, in earnest, I think there was discussion of it even before, was Light and Power is in the business of lines. And Scott did a really good explanation when we started this conversation at Light and Power, saying it's the same business we're in, even though it's different. It's still lines, and that's where the smart grid, and that's where the big point I forgot, so thank you, Tim. This is a smart grid loan, and that's why the drop lines don't count, is because even the federal government recognizes how important it is to have a secured 21st century network for your operations to be based off of. How many times have we gotten reports about Russian hackers, and be careful about our emails, and governments under attack, and companies and governments being held for ransom, basically? This is all to reinforce our grid. So to Tim's point, even if we did nothing with this residentially, and people, again, we've got a newer commission, so I forget who's heard this or not, there are institutions already on our dark fiber network that are already using this. And so this is allowing us to expand it to institutions that need it to stay safe. In the process of building this out, it just made sense to also offer residents the opportunity to tap into this resource that we have as a utility that is a utility.
That helps me a lot, because we signed on for this, we live downtown, and we signed on right away as supporters of the city. But, Spectrum has fought back with lower prices, and even we have said, are we going to stick with this? Because for most people, they go for the lowest price option. And so I worry about the take rate, but if everything you're saying is correct, then I'm very happy. That's great. Thank you.
I did just want to highlight as a point of reference, I'm seeing it's not in this particular packet, but for the Light and Board packet for the meeting of April 11th, there are some background reference slides which talk a little bit more about what is included in Smart Grid, so that you understand that the TCLP fiber is really a revenue diversification opportunity of something that we have to invest in anyway in order to be a resilient and sustainable utility. So more than happy to make certain that gets forwarded on to the rest of the commission if that's helpful. But it is in the Light and Power Board packet for April 8th.
And Brandy, while you're up there, the other thing to your point is that we have, even though, excuse me, in the limited area we've been in, we have not seen a high churn rate, which is unusual. So even
very low one, as a matter of fact.
Exactly. So even though people are getting these Spectrum notices and requests, as someone who's on the network, I've even looked at these sometimes, but said, okay, but in 2 years or a year, my rate's going to double with them, or I had more outages when I was with them. So that's what I think is going to be the quality of the brand that we're offering here,
And
too,
it
is the
good quality.
reliability.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's backing our government institutions, so.
And I can say, as a consumer of TC Fiber, that when there are outages, TC Fiber is much more responsive. In this case, it wasn't a technical issue on their part. It was GFL and their infinite capabilities. Twice emptying our neighbor's garbage bin took out the overhead line.
Oh,
But the second time it happened, it was fixed before I even woke up in the morning. So that was nice.
I'm glad.
With Spectrum, I couldn't ever count on such prompt service.
Okay, any other questions or concerns from up there on the commission? Okay. We already have a motion and a second. I'll ask for any more public comment if they want to make it, but it'll be less than a minute. All right. Barb, I'll give you 1 minute.
No,
No, you have to come to the mic so the people at home can hear you. Thank you.
Oh, God, come that crazy lady again. Okay, so it's not clear in my mind. Last year, we did a bond issue. You published it and everything, and you put the $14.699 million in that bond issue.
We put 18 million into it.
Right, so that can go. You can now go bond out for that money. which happens to be the exact same number that you're getting from the Department of Ags. So are we getting both of them?
No,
Are you sure?
Yes.
Because legally, we can.
no. The
So
the
why,
18 million
then why are
was
we
co-
bonding out, if you're getting the 14,699 from the Department of Ags, then why are we bonding out that amount in the bond issue? It doesn't make sense.
Okay, well,
That's all I'm saying.
someone can explain it to you right afterwards. Okay, well, okay, hang on.
We got
We
an
have
eager
the
volunteer.
attorney here to do that, yes.
Tom Coase with Miller Canfield. So just to be clear, there's 2 steps for each bond issue, right? You publish a notice that has a right of referendum period associated with it, and then you authorize it once you get past that period. Last year, you published a notice for the 18.2 million. What you're authorizing tonight is actually execution of that loan with USDA for the 14.699. That's under that notice that was authorized last year. The 10 million that's being authorized is a publication of a notice for additional. That, once you get past the referendum period on that, you'll have to come back to the commission to actually authorize the issuance of bonds in that circumstance. So the question of, has the method of sale been determined yet? That'll be determined later when you actually bring the bond resolution back to the commission for review once you're past the referendum period. So, and again, and that's published as a not to exceed $10 million. So once the dollar amount is determined, it has to be below that threshold, and then that'll be brought to the commission for consideration for a resolution to actually authorize the issuance of those bonds. And within that resolution will be the proposed method of sale, whether it's a competitive sale, publishing a notice in the bond buyer, that would actually be included, that notice would be included in the resolution, or whether it gets a negotiated sale through either a private placement or an underwritten transaction. That'll be part of that next resolution once you get to that step. That's not been determined just yet. So again, we start with the notice. You authorize the loan tonight with RUS to execute that. That's the 14.699. That was under the notice that was done last year. And so you're authorizing the notice again for the 10 million for the next piece.
Yes.
He's correct. No, no, Barb, Barb.
Nope, nope,
Y'all can,
nope, out of
Okay.
order.
okay.
I just wanted to say one last quick thing since we opened it up. And I appreciate Mr. Tweetmeyer's and Ms. Willig always being at our meetings, both mostly at Light and Power and here. I guess one thing I just really wanted to say to our commissioners, because I can't remember who we've had these conversations with over the years, is, as we saw from up here, there's been so many facets of this over the last 7 years that even I, with my notes in front of me, not being able to read them all, Tim supplementing, there's been a lot going on with this, but that's because it's a huge project that was not taken on lightly by Light and Power. There have been meetings and study sessions and RFPs and ad hocs. So as we've done this back and forth and filling in the blanks, it's not that these are shady, as it was once referred to. It's that there's so much going on, but that everybody has this ability to touch the knowledge when it does come up, because we all have been in this for years now. And I think this is a very, I guess exciting is the word I would use for it, for the city and Light and Power, for the smart grid aspect of it alone. I don't know if some of you weren't up here when we were still operating on DOS and down with our shared network with the county. This is huge for us, for our security, for our ability to operate, decades into the future. And so I think when we have conversations like this, it can sometimes come off as, yeah, let's move along. But it's not because we're trying to move it along out of any kind of subterfuge. We're trying to move it along because this has been the reality. This is the coming reality of so much work by Light and Power staff, city staff assisting them, our commission, former Light and Power commissions, current Light and Power commissions, working hard to put this together, to have all the answers and to do it right. And so before we take the vote, I just wanted to thank everybody for that work. I know we'll have yet another piece coming back to us, but as this is the first time in a year because of the delay with the USDA funds that we've brought it back, and that delay might have been confusing or even had people scratching their head. It's just the federal government. And so I just wanted to take a minute to thank everybody for their patience with this and for the work that everybody's put into it over the years. Sorry to delay the vote.
Okay. All right. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, and Barb, I'm sure the attorney will be more than happy to explain it to you if you'd like to take a few more minutes after the meeting. Thank you. You're welcome. All right, we have an update on the process for hiring an interim city manager. I'll turn this over to you, Ms. Hill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Make sure you have your calendars ready.
Nobody responded to the email? Come
Thank
on,
you,
guys.
Honorable Mayor. Since our last meeting at April 10th, unfortunately, we had one candidate withdraw from consideration. That candidate is Ryan Cotton. So today, we're asking for direction as to whether the City Commission prefers to move ahead with only the two remaining candidates, or whether you want to identify additional candidates. If we take additional candidates, those people from the April 10th meeting next in line would be, in ranking, would be Troy Bell and Robert Moffett. We did confirm those names with the clerk's office, just to be sure as to how the ranked choices fell out. Also, one of the candidates is not available on April 24th for an interview, so the clerk's office did send out an inquiry as to what dates would be best. So those two things are kind of action items for tonight. With respect to the interview process overall, the City Commission would have an open interview. It is recommended that the individuals be interviewed separately and not as a panel, so that the City Commission can kind of get to know the individual candidate, rather than having like a panel where you might get parts of an answer from one, parts of an answer from another, that sort of thing. So it's just better for the commission to learn about the candidate. We should also talk about what competencies, experience, attributes they're looking for. We do have sample questions. We did get several questions from city commissioners, so staff will look through those. We might tweak them a little bit, but excuse me. So each commissioner should ask one or two questions, kind of a round robin thing. Typically, it would go from to the left of the mayor, and everybody gets a chance to speak to the candidate. Then, let's see, all of the candidates should have the same questions, so that it's kind of equal. They're not asking like trick questions, or one candidate gets a question that is out of the blue, so that it's on the same platform. Interviews typically last 45 minutes or more, depending on the question and the depth of the answers that come out of the question. So just plan for that. You know, it's probably going to be an hour per candidate. And then, let's see, there are some questions that cannot be asked, so that's why we ask for the questions in advance. City staff, HR, and legal will look at those and make sure they're appropriate for the candidates. And then at the completion of the interview, we would stop for maybe up to 10 minutes to fill out an evaluation form. That form is not necessarily for ranking. It's more of a guide to help clarify the city commissioner's thoughts about individual candidates, and when you're debating afterwards, you can find different points that you might want to pick out for individual candidates. Once a final decision has been made, then a negotiation team should be identified to negotiate the contract with the interim. And the reason that we ask for that is that the different candidates might have different priorities as far as I'm coming from far away and I would need maybe a housing stipend or mileage or, not just a wage. And it might be different for each candidate. So the negotiating happens after the selection is made. And then, of course, city staff would do background checks, criminal background checks, reference checks, that sort of thing. And we do have HR Director Christine Bosley here. If you have specific questions or technical questions, either Christine or Attorney Lauren Tribble will be able to assist.
Really quickly, Penny,
Yes.
because I probably should have stopped you before, because it's before the process part. Just to clarify, so since we know that sometimes the community engages in speculation, that Mr. Cotton did not want to interview because of a business conflict, correct? It wasn't, he just ran for the hills.
Oh, no, he cited personal reasons and the fact that he does have a executive search firm that he was interested in submitting a proposal for that.
For our coming RFP?
Yes.
Thank you.
So the first question, are we, following your suggestion, is that do we want to go to the next individuals in the ranking and see if there's another individual we would like to have in this process, or stay with the two that are remaining?
Since our initial plan was to select from the list 3 to 5 candidates, I'd say if we go to the next 2 candidates, then that puts us from 2 to 4, so that gets us into that 3 to 5 range.
I have a process question that I probably should have asked before the meeting, but given what had happened, Penny, if you had not agreed to be the interim, would Ben Marantet have been the next person? How is it written in our charter? What happens there? What is the line of
I'll defer
succession?
that to Lauren.
It isn't written as like a rank in the charter. The charter provides that the city commission has to select and appoint that person within a certain time frame. So it would fall back to the commission. The usual custom, I guess I would say, is that it has been the assistant city manager, at least since I've been here, and then either the clerk or the treasurer would have taken that on depending on who was more senior. So in that case, that would have been Benjamin Marantet.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's a decision for the commission.
Okay.
Does that help?
So that is not written somewhere, that this is the line of succession?
There is an administrative order that talks to that, and that's where what Lauren is referencing. But that administrative order, the intent of it was for when the city manager was absent for a day or a little bit more, let's say going on vacation, that sort of thing, not as a permanent replacement until someone new could be appointed.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. We have one thought of adding both Mr. Bell and Mr. Moffett at this. That's one.
I would just say that since we unintentionally did it twice last time, I think that the numbers bore out these 3 as the top consistently. The other numbers didn't really, anyway, we sliced it, rank as high. So I guess I would be inclined to say that we lived up to the motion that we tried to interview 3 to 5 people. One of the 3 wasn't available. I would say let's stick to the 2, but I know there was someone who wasn't here who might have some input that they want to share, and also I'm not 100% married to that. I'm thinking just how if we're going by the process that we did last week for the process portion.
It sounds as though having not been here, having been 7 hours ahead of what was going on here, and I'll be honest, I was not watching your meeting in Latvia. But reviewing what was transpired, while the spirit of what we were looking for was 3 to 5, I was comfortable with 3. It was unfortunate that we had an individual remove himself from consideration, but his rationale for wanting to be involved with the RFP, that makes sense. And so given that the remaining candidates were not rising to the surface in a clear fashion, rather than dilute the process, I would rather spend relatively more time with the 2 candidates who remain from those top 3 than to bring additional people forward.
That's where I am too.
Okay.
Weren't we going, were we going for just the top 3 last time?
Mm-hmm.
Was it not clear who the 4th was?
It was not.
Well,
I think,
one of these 2 was my top pick, and, and the other 2 that are
okay. If I understand it right, Mr. Bell would have been the number 4, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That is correct.
He would have been, if you were looking for a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, top 3, and then Mr. Bell would have been number 4, and Mr. Moffett number 5. Okay. If I read the memo right, so. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, I would support extending the invitation to Mr. Bell, so we would have 3, as long as we can try to come up with a date sooner rather than later.
Okay.
And the date matters because
Yeah.
during the agenda setting meeting, we are going to be running into vacation times for both
Well,
the interim city manager and also the city clerk.
Well, let's kind of go with, let's stick with the first thing
Yeah.
here. Are we good with adding Mr. Bell?
I'm fine with that if he's available on the dates we choose.
Okay, all right, okay. Do we,
bottom selection. So.
Sorry, you wanted to add the
I
other
would,
gentleman?
yeah, Mo fits.
Sorry, I spoke not understanding what I had heard first. So I retract what I said.
Fair
So
enough.
we're staying with 2?
Well, we can vote on it. I thought that's
Yeah.
what we were doing.
Yeah. I mean,
all right,
Well, since we're at this point, I'll just bring it up that I'm not sure that what we did in our ranked choice voting was how it was built. Like it's not that we used it improperly. I'm not sure that we asked the computer program the right question.
Let
if
this
you
be,
will.
let this be a lesson for people who are worried about AI taking over.
Yes, and
Because
as-
it spit out, it was going for, it didn't give any value to my second or third choice. It gave no value to his second or third choice. It was only valuing the top choices. And I think there must be a way in the program, if we understood it better, to somehow give value to those. Or we should have made it very clear as we were selecting that your second and third choice don't really matter. We're really just after your first choice, when we put 3 names down.
Yeah.
So somehow, again, just tossing that in the mix to point out that, yes, we have 2 names. We had 3, now we're down to 2, but maybe the system was slightly flawed. So if we have a little grace, maybe.
Does the raw data exist somewhere?
It does.
Is there a way to crunch that?
Or is that how we arrived? Is that how we arrived at
If we had a
3 and 4?
statistician to help us.
Yeah.
I'm strong in math, but not that strong. Especially on the fly.
okay. I'm
This
open
might,
to-
might, this might not be popular to say, but if we were going to add someone, out of respect for a staff member who has done a wonderful job in his current position, I would rather add him as the 3rd person than people that we're not even sure where they were in the ranking. Out of respect and for reasons of morale, people should be able to advance. So I'm just saying that.
Well,
but-
is that you want to make a motion to that?
No, I'd like to hear discussion about it.
Okay.
but.
Okay. Yes.
Yes, following up on what Commissioner Werner said, a ranked choice voting system like this works great if you have thousands of voters and you're trying to operate a larger election, and you have a certain group that has a clear first choice and another group that has another clear first choice, but then other people that might have a wide range of other first choices, and therefore their second or third, fourth choice is one of those two. But for a larger field with a smaller number of people that are picking, you can only choose, or your first choice matters the most. And even if there's, say, 4 people that have the same person as their second or third choice, it doesn't rise to the top if none of us picked them as the first choice.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I would just like to reiterate that this ranked choice method of voting was the same method that was used when choosing
Linda.
a new
aren't you happy
city
with that
commissioner. So, you know, that it is consistent.
Yes. I would say that in that case, we did know a little more about the candidates. We didn't have the voting until we had done the first interviews. So
Okay.
it wasn't just looking at,
Resumes.
yes.
Did you want to say something?
No,
I was going to say, I just want to say, I guess, and maybe I'm being a little too abrupt, but this is for our interim city manager, and it's a position that needs to be filled. Penny has been doing extra work. All staff I know has been doing extra work to pitch in and help out. I want us to have this conversation more and make sure that as we're maybe, however we decide to use the process, though, I would, again, favor the process we used to pick Ms. Eckred, who's here in our crowd here, which was a little different, that I would rather us get to the heart of let's interview some people and get an interim selected and pick some dates in the near future here. And, you know, some of these people, knowing that they ranked in our top 4 or 5, might want to apply for the position when it opens up. I agree about not wanting to dissuade staff from ever applying for higher positions. I don't want to ever send that message as an organization that we don't respect people in our own organization who get up and do the work and better themselves. So I think that's where this all comes out. We're hashing some details here that I think for interim, I'm not saying they're not important, it's a good conversation to have, and everybody might disagree with me, and that's okay. But I'd rather just say, okay, we had 2, even in our debated ranked choice system, that kept coming to the top. We had 3 really, but 2 that are available. And I guess my inclination right now would be, let's interview those 2 people, let's have the conversation, let's get an interim in, and as is later on our agenda, we've got some more, or maybe it's not this agenda, maybe it's coming up. Sorry, it's coming up. Penny, let me know. So in a very soon future meeting, we'll be getting our RFP and other things out to really do the bigger decision and take that weighted time.
The RFP will not, you've seen that, that's going out, it won't be back before us.
Well, but no, I'm saying is in the future, we'll be seeing the results of that.
Okay. I just
So
wanted
to me,
to-
this is, yes, I agree, sorry, that came out weird as I was like trying to check the agenda and talk at the same time. So I guess that's where I would leave it as, let's just get some interviews done and get an interim in and see who applies for the permanent position.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Well said, thank you, I agree.
No, thank you.
Me too.
I
I
see
agree.
nods. Okay. The consensus is we're going to stick with the 2 that are remaining. We're good.
I mean, we could have a formal vote if people want to.
Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Just
I
wanna
mean,
make sure.
after the interviews, we'll deliberate over just how the interview went, or,
Yeah.
I mean,
Correct.
yeah.
Okay.
And this
feel like I'm very-
process, yes, it's just an interim, but it is also a learning experience for us to guide what will be our selection for the permanent position.
Okay. All right, let's start looking at our calendars, folks. The first open date is the 20th, 7 o'clock. That's a week from Thursday.
No, the
No,
20th is Thursday.
This Thursday, not a week from this Thursday.
So what I responded and had said that I'm available the 26th, the 28th, and the 17th.
The what, the,
26, 28, 17.
Didn't we hand these dates in already?
Yeah.
Ms. Lutz, didn't you ask for this information?
I did
No,
not
sh-
have a 100% response rate.
Okay.
He
Were
means
there-
me.
Oh,
Well, I didn't
I
either, because
wasn't
I thought
calling
we were going to do
anybody
that here.
Oh.
were there any dates that there seemed to be some consensus of the people who did respond of unanimous, or?
The 28th I have 3 people
Good enough.
Okay,
saying yes.
okay, let's go to the 26th.
I can't be there.
What about the 28th?
You're out of town, right?
Yeah, I'm going the 26th to the 30th. And I think pushing it into May is not smart, so.
I think going any further into May is going to be tough for everybody, in due honesty.
Mm-hmm.
And the 21st doesn't work?
Not for Mark.
The
20th, he said didn't work for him.
20th.
we could, there's one thing on my calendar. I went with dates that, like, I know without a doubt, I can make something on the 21st work.
I can't do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dang, if we just didn't have people. Okay, no.
Sorry.
People
If
didn't have to
everything
work.
worked on the 24th, then
Do we deliberate at the interviews, or is it just an
Yeah.
interview and then we meet again to make our selections?
No, we may
No.
make a decision, we'll
Oh,
deliberate.
right then and
after.
there.
Take
It'll
a-
be like we did with
Everybody and like,
Linda.
oh, that's cool, we feel good about them,
Yeah.
good?
Yes.
Well, that's, you can't
Well,
vote by
I mean,
Zoom
that's
in,
the
though.
game plan, it doesn't
We
mean
do
you will.
background checks on everybody and
Huh?
things at
The,
that time?
the background checks would come after the selection.
Can I ask the attorney
checks.
or Ms. Hill, I can Zoom into this meeting. Is that a possibility?
You couldn't, your vote wouldn't count.
I
But your
wish
vote
it
doesn't-
was, but we can't do it
Okay.
anymore for purposes of voting.
yeah, I mean, you can watch same as somebody watching at home, but
Right.
and you can email comments.
Okay.
That's true.
Can we do it the 24th? Just a week?
One of the
The
later?
candidates
candidate
isn't
can't.
available.
Oh, candidate can.
Nate.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Geinsner.
Mark?
One candidate can't?
Right, one of the
All right,
two
then we go with
remaining.
the other.
There you go.
It's been done.
Mark,
You here for
oh,
the
you
city?
said that on the 21st you could do something?
But I
I-
can't.
Oh, that's right, you can. Okay.
It's just those other days, I know that, like, anything on that day I can, isn't important.
And it could be during the day as well.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
the 20th,
Yeah, we
you
can
said
do it during
7
the day.
PM. Could we do it during the day?
Yes.
Anybody?
On when?
What?
The 20th during the day? I have to be done by 3 PM, but I could do anything before that.
Probably not for me.
I'm fully booked on the 20th.
Okay.
during the day.
Just throwing it out there since we're opening daytime.
Also,
Start till noon.
you may not want me trying to make rational decisions with the amount of jet lag that I'm currently carrying forward.
Fair. Been there, done that.
And I'll be gone the 5th through the,
So I'm going to throw out an unpopular idea.
I'm at a conference.
Could
next few
people
days,
meet
I'd
on
be
like
crap.
the
As soon
22nd?
as they'd be coming back.
Wait, could somebody
Oh,
meet on the
like on
20?
Saturday?
Saturday, like if we scheduled it
Yeah.
early, but not too early and be done before the day is totally gone?
Can we do that?
oh, wait, no, I
Nope.
won't be here. Sorry.
Mark, how can you have a life?
It's Earth Day. You need to be doing your
Hey.
road cleanups.
Okay,
Mondays
Um,
at 7 o'clock. They can either.
That's right.
Did you guys want to consider a different time?
well, we're leaving it wide open, not just for 7 o'clock, but if something during the day.
So are you
Uh,
at the meeting on the 24th and then you're leaving Wednesday? So was the candidate unavailable all day on the 24th or were they,
They're not available on the 24th.
Okay.
He's available any other day.
could we, and I'm not saying this, if he said he was totally unavailable, he might be totally unavailable, but could we interview the candidate via Zoom? It would be a slight disadvantage because they are over Zoom versus somebody who could come in person, but,
Legally, that's allowed, yes.
okay. Would that be something we could check on, or was it kind of like I'm at a conference or something and totally off
He
book?
had another obligation.
Okay,
that day.
so not available at all.
Did you want me to see if he's available another time that day and not at 7?
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
was
that's
saying,
what we're
like,
thinking.
Give me a minute.
Okay, let's take a 5-minute recess while she makes a couple of phone calls.
Okay.
Please help yourself to chocolate.
Yes.
Oh, there's chocolate?
Or better yet, let's do one other thing. Let's go down to appointments, and then we'll take a 5-minute recess. We'll get done with that.
Okay,
Better.
Okay.
no chocolate.
Okay, under appointments, we have an appointment to, Ms. Colburn. We're going to go to appointments.
I thought you just said we're taking 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah, I'm leaving.
No, I'm going to take a,
Sorry, I missed the changing of the mind.
no, I thought we just going to finish that. Ms. Colburn is recusing herself. The appointment that's being considered is her husband. So we'll take it from there. A ad hoc committee of myself, Mayor Pro Tem Shamro, and Commissioner Wilson met with Mr. Michael Vickery. Did I pronounce that correctly? Vickery. And it's our recommendation that he be reappointed to the Traverse Area District Library seat for a term to expire in December 31st, 2026.
I'll make the motion, but I also just wanted to say that he was our only applicant,
Yeah.
but also, as I'm on the Friends of the Library Board, which is not politically appointed, it is a group that anybody can join, hint, hint, and I've seen the good work that he has done on there with some other newer board members. They're really doing a lot of good work. So I will gladly, even though he was the only appointment or interviewee, but still enthusiastically make the motion that the mayoral appointment of Michael Vickery to the Traverse Area District Library Board, I think it's supposed to say, the seat previously held by Michael Vickery, expiring December 31st, 2026, as recommended by the ad hoc committee consisting of Mayor Lewis, Mayor Pro Tem Shamro, and Commissioner Wilson, be approved.
Support.
We have a motion and support. Is there anyone from the audience that has a question? Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion carries. Now we'll take a 5-minute break.
I think we have an
Actually,
answer.
already have a response.
Okay. Okay.
Efficiency.
The candidate stated that he is available in the morning of the 24th for an in-person, as long as it's done prior to noon, because he has to be downstate on the east side, so. for a
Okay.
night
Okay.
meeting.
That works for me.
Is that, and that room is available, is that correct, for that whole day when we looked at it? This room?
This room.
That
Yes.
room, whatever.
Okay, great.
Okay, so we'll be doing it the morning of the 24th. I got to get back up to that line.
And the other candidate is available that morning as well, as far
The
as you
other
know?
candidate stated that he has an open
Great.
schedule. He'll make
Thank
it, he'll make it himself available.
Great.
Okay.
Well, I'll trust you guys to get to us about time for starting the meeting.
Okay. So we'll continue with the two candidates. It'll be the morning of April the 24th,
Perfect.
and we'll take it from there.
Great.
Thank you.
Good problem solving.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
That whole day.
Okay, with that,
Keep my Mondays
we'll
open.
move down to those reports, announcements, and correspondence. The one thing I do want to mention is that the TC Light and Power Board's draft budget has been submitted. So we'll take it from there. That, you'll see that later on. And after that, we have no reserved public comment. We're open for general public comment. Anyone here want to make a public comment? I think everyone got tired. Okay. Is there any city commission? Mayor or city commissioners got any extra things? Yes, sir.
So because it's Earth Week, and a year ago about this time, our governor, Gretchen Whitmer, came up to Traverse City to unveil her Michigan Healthy Climate Plan. And then last week, I had the opportunity to attend an Eagle conference down in Detroit about the Michigan Healthy Climate Plan, at which the governor spoke, amongst many others. And I bring it up because it is Earth Week, Earth Days, this coming Saturday. It was a very inspiring conference, but at the same time, it showed just how much work there is to do. So I would encourage people, in addition to their tree planting or celebration or whatever it might be that they do on Saturday, to hold your elected and appointed officials' feet to the fire, not just this week, but all year long.
Thank you.
I have a kudo. I was part of the Battle of the Books Day on Saturday, where close to 400 students read books and had fun. along with hundreds of parent coaches and supporters and judges and volunteers who help make that run. We should be very proud to live in a city that celebrates young people and their learning and their reading. It's a lovely event if you ever get a chance to go.
And I just wanted to throw in another event from Saturday that I was fortunate to attend, the annual Taste the Rainbow benefit for Up North Pride. And just as somebody who grew up here and has lived here and seen how our community has changed and embraced our LGBTQIA+ community, it was a great event to be at. Attorney General Dana Nessel came for it. State Senator Mallory McMorrow was up for it, because how our community has embraced all the diversity that is here is well known in the state. And so I just wanted to thank all the volunteers who made that possible publicly, thank all the people who support Pride now and year-round, and just say I'm proud to live in this community that has evolved so much from the community that I grew up in.
And last but not least, last night I had the honor of attending a tribute banquet at the American Legion, and it's called the Four Chaplains Tribute Dinner. I have a draft of the resolution that I presented that I'll get a copy to you. But it deals with 4 chaplains during World War II who gave up their lives and their, so that soldiers on a battleship or a troop carrier was sunken. The 4 chaplains gave up their life vests and everything that went with it. I enjoyed the event and realized how those folks in the service, no matter what rank or what role you're playing, do give up a lot of their lives, including giving their lives. It was very interesting and inspiring. So, thanks for allowing me to do that. So, appreciate it. Okay, with that, anything else? I hereby call this adjourned. Y'all can stay.
Mine's nice and straightforward.
Yeah, mine's kind of like the snake.
No.
Because actually,